This is where they keep the fickin' maniacs. That's what my Nana would say. My Nana was kind of an interesting person. She was an alcoholic for many, many years of her life, didn't get sober until her 60s, and she was actually married 16 times. No, that's not a typo, that's not a mistake. There's actually 14 we know of on record, and 2 others we think she was married as well, but we don't have the records for it. And throughout my life, there was a lot of interesting things, like the fact that my parents would send me to be watched by my alcoholic grandmother, who threw me in the pool at the age of 1, almost killing me, and didn't let my brother go with her. Interesting. The abuse that I went through growing up that scarred me both physically and mentally. And all these things just seem to add up. And I gotta ask ourselves, are our stories keeping us stuck? Are these stories we have about ourselves and about our upbringing stopping us from having the breakthrough in life that we know we need? Because oftentimes I meet lots of people who are struggling with alcohol, struggling with life, struggling with addiction and everything like that. And they're so quick to tell their story. They say, this is what happened to me. This is how things were. This is what was done to me. And oftentimes we live our lives in the shadow of our stories. What does this mean? This means that the stories we tell ourselves and the meaning we give them oftentimes keeps us locked in a cycle and unable to grow. And the reason is because we have our stories over here. And we say, this is what was done to me. We say, this is how I was treated. We say things like, life was like this. I was abused. I was neglected. Now, we have all these stories over here that we tell ourselves, and if you're like me, before I got sober, I would tell anyone who would listen what my story was. I wanted you to hear that struggle I went through. I wanted you to hear the bad things so that you could understand me. And I had all these stories, these narratives that I went through in life, and I had memories, and I had pieces of memories, and I had fragments of ideas and fragments of memories that I thought was done to me, that I thought I did, and all this stuff lined up and created a life that I had to escape from. The only thing I knew how to do was escape through drinking. And I said, all this stuff happened to me. How could I not need to escape? How could all this happen to one person, and how can I escape? Now, the reason I needed to escape wasn't just because these things happened, because they happened, they were in the past, but the problem was they were coming into the future, they were coming into the present, they were coming into the now because of the meaning I gave to my stories. The meaning that I gave to my stories. What meaning are we giving to our stories? So I might say, this is what was done to me. I deserve this. Well, the fact of the matter is I was just a kid, and even when I was a young kid and an adolescent and all that, right, I never deserved that stuff. I just went through life and I didn't deserve it, but my brain said I did. Or maybe my brain said in some circumstances I didn't. How can someone do this to me? And I looked at all these stories of what happened, what was done, as something that happened to me. I isolated it and I said, this person hurt me. These people neglected me. Me. And I gave the meaning to these stories saying, well, I do or do not deserve this. And I went through my life carrying this badge saying, well, if I deserve this, what else do I deserve? I went through life saying, well, if this is how me, was treated, then this means I am unlovable. I am unwanted. I am a reject. or loser or whatever it is I tell myself. And there's these stories, and then there's the meaning that we give to the stories. But the secret of life is the fact that when you're young and these things happen to you, you do not deserve them. You did not bring them upon yourself. We have to look at it and say, past abuse from our childhood and from our life doesn't need to have meaning, because if there was a different person in the picture, the same thing would have happened. You see, the problem is that we look at life as something that happens to us. This happened to me. I lost my job. I'm going through this. I got pain. I got hurt. I have this ailment. I have this stuff, as if it's something isolated just happening to us for a specific reason. The world hates me. The universe hates me, or whatever other meaning I give to these things that happen to me. But the fact of the matter is if you took yourself out of the picture, there would be someone else on planet Earth getting the same exact treatment, the same exact stuff. Now, chances are the person would end up with the same kind of ailments and the same kind of things that you're dealing with right now that you might feel you need to escape from. Because of the fact that this happens at such a young age and happens for such a long time, which is why they call child abuse, because of the effects that it brings. But this happens for such a long time that we get indoctrinated. We get conditioned by these things. Our very personality, our very thought process gets molded by these things. And unfortunately, we start to tell ourselves stories and give meaning to these stories about what this means about us. But the fact of the matter is if there was another kid that my parents had, they probably would have done the same exact thing. If there was another person that my step-parents had, there would be the same thing that happened, regardless of what the person was like. Tall, skinny, fat, whatever, right? Or short, as me, right? And we look at this and we're like, this stuff is going to happen anyway. Life happens. It's like the Bible says, right? It rains on the just and the unjust alike. God's rain does not have any singularity. It doesn't have any purpose to get one person or another. It rains on the whole town. And the same thing happens. There's an ebb and flow to life. Unfortunately, there's some bad people that do bad things. Unfortunately, there's people like those people that I grew up with that had bad ideas. Like, hey, let's send one kid to the alcoholic grandma who almost killed him, and let's keep the other one safe. Why did that happen? I don't know. I could go through and say, well, I deserve this. I'm a bad kid. I'm not lovable. Maybe I'm terrible. Maybe I'm unwanted. Or I could look at this and say, the adults are pretty fucked up in this situation. It has nothing to do with me. I don't need to give that meaning. Right? The person who abuses you is the person doing the wrong. It doesn't have anything to do with the stories or the meaning of the stories that we give them. We could simply look at it as an event that happened in life apart from us. And then we could separate and we could start to heal by saying, I don't need to escape from this because it doesn't mean anything about me as a person. As I've said in other videos, and if you haven't seen them, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. Click the little bell because we're going to help you out. But as I've said in other videos, I am not the sum of what has been done to me. I am not the sum of what has been done to me. My life, my existence, my person is not accumulation of all the things that happened to me. I am not my stories. I am not my abuse. I am not the neglected one. I am not these things. I am something much more, something different. But the problem is we don't know how to cope with these things. And so many people say you need to get over that. Well, newsflash, you never get over something, you move through it. You move through it by understanding we don't need to escape. You move through it by saying, I don't need to tell my story over and over again to get people to understand me. I just need to be. I need to accept myself because these are not true. These are not true. Right? We don't have to look at this and say, I'm unlovable, I'm unwanted, I'm a reject, or whatever. Right? Why did that happen? I don't know. It probably has something to do with the crazy son of a bitch who did it to you. Right? And we look at this and we say, I can move through this because it has nothing to do with me. So, The moral of this video and the key to keeping sober, if you have this kind of stuff going on, is to let go of the meaning that you're giving your stories. You might be keeping a memory of the past because letting go of that memory might, in your mind, say, well, that lets the guy off the hook, or that lets the girl off the hook, or that lets my abuser or my attacker off the hook. Well, it doesn't let them off the hook, right? That still happened, they're still bad, but it's putting them in the place where they belong. Not, this happened to me because of something with me, but this happened to me because they're messed up. And when we start to let go of the stories, right? A lot of times, maybe it's a story about yourself. Maybe I'm a failure because this didn't work. Well, no, you just tried something and it didn't work, right? That's it. That's the end of the story. But the problem is we carry these stories as a badge of honor. We carry these stories and we're willing to tell them to anyone who has 2 ears or 1 ear or a computer or whatever. And you see them all the time in alcoholic recovery rooms saying, this is my story. This is what happened. And there's all this emotion, just like it's the day it happened. And it's because the healing process hasn't started yet, because they haven't accepted this as what is so. Acceptance. That life happens. It happens to good, it happens to bad people, it just happens. When we start to accept it and say, this is what my story was, this is what happened, and stop giving it meaning, then we could start to heal and we could start to stay sober. Thanks again for watching this. I'm Marcus from TalkSober.com. I really hope this helped you out. It's something I've struggled with for years. I didn't get past the meaning I gave my stories till I was about 35, 36 years old, and I started to understand that this stuff happens. And I started to build a life, and I started to build stories that I didn't have to escape from. So, I hope this helps you. Put your comments in the box if it did help you. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel and watch my other videos. We're here to help you out with all this stuff, including how to stay sober. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.